All right, we have this exercise in which we are given a string, and the string consists of forwards and spaces, and we want to return the length of the last word in the string. Okay, so this ends up being a problem where, at least in Python, we can solve it using a combination of built-in functions. And maybe a few other things, but it ends up being a very short solution. So basically we want to, we have the string and we want to find the last word. And so what you might, your gut reaction might be to try to do something where you like search for the final space in this string, but that's not really necessary because let's see here. Python has this built-in function called split. And what split does is when applied to a string, it will return a list of substrings. And so let's just say there's some argument that we put into this split function. And so the argument that we're putting in here is a space. And so what this means is that s.split and feeding in a blank space, what this means is this will return a list such that if you take each element of the list and concatenate them together while putting a space in between them, then that's going to give you the original string. So let's just do an example, just in case this is unfamiliar. So let's just say S is like ABC space DEF. Okay. Then if we do s.split and we split using a space, then this is going to be ABC DEF. And so if you wanted to go from the split string back to the original string, what you would do is you would just iterate, you would just go through all of these elements of this list and put whatever separator we have here, whatever we're putting into the split function, put that in between each element, put that in between the elements of the list, and then when you put that all together, that will give you the resulting string. However, there is sort of like a there's a question of like, what if we had like S equals ABC and then like two spaces here? I'll just write here ABC DEF, and then let's put another space at the end there. So these here, these are not underscores. I'm just writing these out to make it clear that these are spaces. So then if we are to do s.split here, then this would give us, we would have ABC, and then we would have an element here which is just like completely blank. It's just quote unquote. And then we would have DEF, and then we would have another quote unquote at the end here. Okay, and you can see why this works, because basically if you want to go from this split, you want to go from this list to the original string, you can put in a space between each pair of elements in the list, each pair of adjacent elements in the list. And so when you do that, these blank elements of the, well, it's not null, but it's just like quote unquote. But yeah, so these elements make it so that like those allow you to pad in additional spaces. Because like here, there's two spaces here, and so when we add this quote unquote, then when we put spaces between adjacent elements of the list, we end up with two spaces right next to each other, because when we concatenate everything together, this quote unquote just isn't included. And so you just get two spaces in a row, and that's exactly what we see here. Similarly, at the end here, we have a blank. And then at the end here, at the end, we have quote unquote again. And so then when you put this blank here between DEF and quote unquote, that blank becomes a blank or that space becomes the space at the end. Okay, and this is how the split function works. And so let's see here. With this in mind, our gut reaction would be like, okay, so let's just return s.split, and then we split the spaces. And then this is going to give us a list of all the words, because we're splitting based on the spaces. And so like all the things in the list are, like your gut reaction might be that all the things in this list are going to be the words. And so you just return the length of the final one. So the length of the final element of this list. Okay. But this isn't quite right, because you can see in this example here, Fly Me to the Moon, we have a space at the end here. And so when we actually like split it up, it's going to be an example like this, where the final element of the split list, the final element is just blank. It's quote unquote. And the length of that is 0. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the length of the last word. And so what we can do is we can just get it. So what you can do is, again, using your knowledge of Python functions, Python has a built-in function to sort of like get rid of spaces at the beginnings of and ends of strings. And it is called strip. Okay, so that deals with this edge, I guess sort of an edge case here. Yeah, that deals with this edge case scenario in which you have spaces at the end of the string that result in blank elements of this list, which can throw off the result. And so here's what you have to do. You have to take your string, you have to strip off all the spaces at the beginning and end. Really, the only thing we care about here is stripping off the spaces at the end, but that's fine. We might as well use this function. And then we split it based on spaces, so that now every element in this list is either a word or it's a blank. But there's not going to be a blank at the end, because we've gotten rid of any blanks at the end by using the strip function. And so then when we have this, we know that the final element of this this list that we get here, the final element of that is going to be a word, because we've applied the strip function. And so we extract that final word using -1, and then we return the length. And so this is what we need to do. All right, and so that's how this works. So this is this exercise is pretty straightforward if you're familiar with all the built-in functions that Python has. But like it would be tricky to do this problem without this knowledge. And so, yeah, this is really just testing your knowledge of Python functions. And if you know them, then this is your answer.